After a while, we moved toward the entrance of the hidden dungeon on the first underground floor. I walked behind Lee Ji-hye, Lee Gil-young, and Jung Hee-won while looking at my smartphone. In the midst of splitting headaches, Yoo Jonghyuk came to his senses. Give up on this life. This was the end of Yoo Jonghyuk's 8th life. It couldn't be. This hadn't happened yet. Shit. Why was this guy doing this only on his 3rd life? If he moved carefully like his 2nd life, he would have passed through mid to late scenarios. I raised my eyes to see Jung Hee-won looking at me. Dokja, what are you looking at? The calendar. The situation has made me lose my sense of the date. I actually thought it might be more interesting to look at the calendar. Sometimes I wondered how I finished reading this novel. Jung Hee-won looked at me suspiciously before turning her to Lee Ji-hye. Then did you say your name was Ji-hye? Do you also use a sword? Yes, I like the sword. Right, the sword is the best. It has a good taste. And he also knows the taste? Jung Hee-won smiled as she watched Lee Ji-hye's sword. It was a luxurious sword that obviously flowed smoothly. Maybe it was given to her by Yoo Jonghyuk. Your sword looks good. Ah, Master gave it to me. Didn't he? My one, I like it as well. Jung Hee-won looked down at the girl horn blade and then sneaked a peek at the sword on the other person's waist. I didn't do anything wrong, but I couldn't help feeling sorry. I had no choice but to hang something on Lee Ji-hye. Hey, why are you talking to Hee-won-shi but ignoring me? That I'm a bit weak to older females. Lee Ji-hye responded while giving a quivering voice, and Jung Hee-won gave her a headlock, as if Lee Ji-hye was cute. There seemed to be a connection between the demon slayers. Lee Ji-hye barely escaped from the headlock and asked, By the way, why are you rescuing him, Master? We're companions. Don't talk nonsense. He's a useful guy. You sound like Master. The Constellation's secret plotter is wondering about your heart. Come to think of it, it wasn't just Lee Ji-hye but the Constellations as well who must be wondering about my actions. He was a guy who would kill me if he got a chance. It was strange that I would run to save him. The Constellation demon-like Judge of Fire likes your desire to rehabilitate a fallen friend. 100 coins have been sponsored. This one misunderstood me. But the demon-like Judge of Fire, unlike the expectations of Archangel Uriel, I had a deeply personal reason for saving Yoo Jonghyuk. It was to prevent him from regressing after his death. Regression after death. It sounded good. A regression stigma that triggered every time you died. The protagonist had a fraudulent ability. The problem was that this ability invoked complicated thoughts in the surrounding cast. By the way, what happens to the world after you return? A supporting actor had asked this of Yoo Jonghyuk when his number of lives had broken into the double digits. I forgot his name, but Yoo Jonghyuk's answer from that time was clear. I also don't know. I always choose a world where more people live. It was plausible, but in fact Yoo Jonghyuk didn't know about the world he abandoned. In fact, there was no definite theory about what happened to the world and ways of survival. Science, magic, whatever. This is why I was anxious. What happened to the world after the regressor disappeared? Would it reset with the regression? Or would a parallel universe branch off? The latter would be fortunate, but if it was the former... Hyung? Yes? Lee Gil-young, who was holding the hem of my clothes, looked up at me with anxious eyes. I think we're here. You are approaching the outside region. Be careful not to leave the scenario area. The message popped up. It didn't matter. Chungmura's hidden dungeon was treated as an inside area. We turned the corner and exit 1 appeared. A dungeon entrance with an ominous shade greeted us. You have found a hidden dungeon. The dungeon has already been discovered by someone. You can't get the first discovery achievement. A new hidden scenario has arrived. Hidden scenario. Theater dungeon. Category, hidden. Difficulty, A-. Clear conditions. Defeat the master of the theater dungeon. Time limit, none. Compensation, 4,000 coins. The surprised Lee Ji-hye hesitated and stepped back. What is this, theater dungeon? Lee Gil-young looked startled. Well, this might be the first time they encountered a hidden scenario. Jung Hee-won also spoke. A movie theater as a dungeon. It sounds romantic. Romantic. This is only because she didn't know how scary the movie theater could be. We entered the theater. The familiar lobby of the multiplex welcomed us. You've entered the theater dungeon. We were tense as we entered the bleak dungeon. It was a multiplex consisted of 9 floors, from B1 to the 8th floor. Hyung, the posters are torn. Who would do that? I'm not sure. I said this, but I actually knew the truth. The core of the theater dungeon were the posters on the wall. Perhaps Yoo Jonghyuk defeated every poster as he went upstairs. His intention were to sweep up all the rewards. Except for the torn posters, nothing was found on B1. There were no items and no monsters. The only exception was the smashed elevator in one corner with a distorted door. Lee Ji asked, Isn't this a dungeon? Why isn't there anything? Something will appear. Do you know something? A little. How? Something's fishy about Ajishi. Is this your second life? That was her master, but he lived 3 times. Then Jung Hee-won said, It's due to the sponsor behind Dokja. Really? I ignored the two women and tried to move to the ground floor when I was caught by Lee Gil-young. The cockroach on his head was moving wildly. Lee Jie drew her sword at almost the same moment I covered her mouth with my hand. Shh! There's someone else besides us here. I breathed out while small sounds started to be heard. Just upstairs. Then, the lobby? I first thought it was Yoo Jonghyuk, but it wasn't Yoo Jonghyuk's voice. Are you sure? Here there are a bunch of things. Yes, I bought the information with 1,000 coins. The profits? Yes, they're disgusting, but the information is obvious. Heard the sound of people talking. We went up the escalator and approached them. It seemed that the 4 people were gathered in the lobby on the first floor. Lee Jie whispered, Who are they? I never once saw their faces in Chongmuru. Maybe they came from the groundside entrance. Groundside? Isn't that filled with poisonous fog? Furthermore, the scenario... Different stations have different scenarios at different speeds. There are those who finish the scenario faster than our station. If there's a weak poisoning, they can eat the meat from the underground species. I said this, but I was confused. Profits? There was no information about such people in Yoo Jonghyuk's life. At this point, Yoo Jonghyuk and I should be the only ones who knew about the hidden dungeon. What caused the variables? Needless to say, I needed to find out. Let's go inside. A blue spotlight was floating above the men talking. A bright light surrounded them and they soon disappeared. What happened to them? Jonghyun asked me, but I didn't answer. Instead, I was searching the posters on the wall. This was torn, that was well. By the time I reached the end of the wall, only one wasn't torn. I read the words written on the poster. Steven Spielberg, Samuel L. Jackson, Jeff Goldblum. That bastard Yoo Jonghyuk. He left this one alone? I was expected from the third regression. At this moment, the light came on us again. This time, the spotlight was aimed on us. The surprised Lee Jie and Lee Gil-young stepped back, but there was no way they could avoid it. The word Ray suited it. I asked Jung Hee-won, Hee-won, likes movies? Of course. Do you usually like it? You might hate it after this. You've been hit by a projection light. The screening will begin. The surrounding landscape started to slowly change. It wasn't a simple illusion, so 4 walls that activated as before. The old linoleum floor became covered with green bushes, while the reception desk and popcorn stand turned into a lush rainforest. The ceiling turned to a blue sky with no clouds and no end in sight. Lee Jie muttered in a small voice, Where the hell is this place? Lee Jie shouted and hacked at the surrounding trees and bushes, but nothing changed. Lee Gil-young started looking for insects with a calm expression. I tried to touch the nearby trees. It had a hard and moist texture. It was a real rainforest in the Mesozoic era. This was a different realism from the Spectre's welcome prison. This was the power of the theater master on the dungeon's 8th floor. It's a movie. Really ridiculous things are happening. A novel had become reality. There's no law that a movie couldn't become reality as well. Jung Hee-won was a fast adapter and quickly understood. Hachishi, what movie is this? You'll know soon. Can't you just let me know? Wait a minute, what is this kid doing? At this moment, the shrubbery moved and something jumped out in front of Lee Gil-young. An insect that resembled a giant praying mantis. The size was approximately 40 centimeters. Lee Jie was terrified and cried out, Hey kid, back away! However, Lee Gil-young responded calmly to the fuss. It isn't a praying mantis. It's a Titanothera from the Triassic period. What? Lee Gil-young stretched out his hand to the Titano. The insect didn't refuse the touch, and after a moment, Lee Gil-young's and the insect's body was wrapped in a blue light. Lee Jie watched with a stupid expression. This... what? Fabre. It was really good that I brought Lee Gil-young. This guy's ability might allow us to pass through the gateway more easily. The giant praying mantis moved his big mouth and Lee Gil-young nodded. I didn't know what it involved, but they were having a conversation. After a while, Lee Gil-young paled as he talked to the praying mantis. What was it? Lee Gil-young hurriedly turned to me. Young! As he spoke, the sound of the earth shaking was heard. It seemed that something was coming at a tremendous speed, smashing through the huge palm trees. The muzzle of a giant reptile that appeared through the rainforest was covered with reddish blood. Some bloody men were running in front of it. It was the men who entered before us. Ah! Save me! Lee Jie stepped back and spoke to Jung Hee-won. I know what movie this is. Yes, me too. A body that was over 12 meters tall and hard skin. Fierce muscles dominated the entire body. The strongest predator of the Mesozoic era was in front of us. At first glance, it was similar to a grade 7 monster. The difficulty level was atrocious considering this was the first floor of the dungeon, but my heart just thumped. The harder the hidden dungeon, the better the reward. I pulled out a blade and said, Get ready to fight. Maybe Yoo Jonghyuk skipped only this movie because of the contents. The main reward of the theater dungeon was related to the movie contents. Yoo Jonghyuk probably thought there weren't any worthy rewards in a movie where dinosaurs appeared, but he didn't know. In this movie, a really important reward was hidden. Are you serious? We're going to fight that? We need to beat it to make an exit. The exit? It's a long movie. Have you forgotten? A T-Rex was quickly approaching. The island's central laboratory was seen behind it. An escape helicopter was on the rooftop of the laboratory. This was a movie that the master of the theater dungeon made into a reality. Therefore, there was only one way to escape from here. Let's make a great ending.